talking about it in the office last week, and someone was saying one of my favourite sort of food influencers that I enjoy their content, and they're like, oh no, you know that they're fake now. They now get paid by the restaurants to give good reviews.
Yeah,
it's kind of sad though. It was a bit sad though.
I think the people that win the most, people that don't do it for the money and actually just try and do it because they enjoy it, and then you get the marketing, your advertising, and you make money out of it that way rather than just trying to sell your services.
Yeah,
you can probably tell when it's paid for, and then you go there to the restaurant, you try, and this is really not nice.
No. Welcome to the Property Funder podcast. I'm your host, Michael Dean. You can find me on the internet at property_funder. I'm here with Deepak Ohri who's a partner at Merali Beedle. Did I say that right? Is it Merali Beedle?
Merali Beedle.
Merali Beedle.
Yeah,
okay, there you go. I'll never say it wrong again.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Deepak is full disclosure. I've known Deepak a very long time, and Deepak and Avamore have worked together for many years on the legal side. We're delighted to have him on. I think he might be the first solicitor that we've ever had on.
Okay,
but
good.
But that's probably might be because you're one of the more colourful and interesting solicitors. So
are they all a boring bunch? Are they?
There's definitely a dryness to it. Listen, I think when you can tell me, but I imagine that there's probably some value in your lawyer being a little bit dull and dry and reliable, right? So
I don't know. One thing I think every lawyer should run a business. Should be involved in a business because then they understand how risk works.
Yeah.
Because a lot of lawyers are very tick boxy, right? Okay, this is what it says. Yeah, but actually, have you thought about the risk? How does it affect you? How does it affect the client? Can you is it a big risk? Is it a small risk? And if you don't understand that, can you really be a good lawyer?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I guess there's also that element of you can. I have first-hand experience. So you could have the most watertight contract in the world, but.
Yep.
You've still got to enforce that contract,
yes.
and what does the enforcement of that contract look like? So, I guess it's about. I guess you would say it's understanding like proportionate risks and stuff like that.
Yeah, for one of our clients, we buy and sell lots of flats. They trade basically, and then one thing is service charge. There's always a back date. You're never going to be on top of the manager is never on top of service charge. You go right. Okay, you might have a £2,000-3,000 payment for last year. Okay, we'll agree on a retention somewhere, but if someone's like, oh, can we just have them indemnify us? Well, you can do, but are you really going to sue them for £2,000-3,000? Are you going to waste £10,000 trying to sue someone for a couple of grand? Realistically not. No. You win some, you lose some. So it's just about understanding the risk and understanding how to, basically tell to your client, right, this is the risk, this is what you want to do. Actually, this is the most sensible thing commercially to do rather than trying to go, right, actually, we'll make sure the contract's watertight and then we're going to sue everyone and we're going to spend hundreds of thousands on legal fees and you're going to get nothing back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. You think that do you think kind of following that theme that a lot of the lawyers in your, not just in your part of the market, but more broadly, are too theoretical and don't actually think about the practical.
Yes, I think a lot of them do. Yeah, you get some very good lawyers that understand. I mean, I trained on some very good lawyers that understood real risk and how it works. But then you do get. I mean, I sit on the other side when I'm active for Borough and lender. They say, well, this is risk. I'm like, yeah, but have you thought about the risk? How's it going to affect you or the client really? So yeah. And they don't think about it. They think, oh well, the law says this, yes, but you have to interpret the law and right, how's it going to work? Yeah, but they don't necessarily do that.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. We had a sale of a distressed asset that we have a loan against that went abortive because of of one particular lawyer's very theoretical interpretation of the title, but that same interpretation. Two different lawyers could have two separate interpretations of what that title meant.
Yep.
And I think that particular law firm or those particular lawyers, it was almost like they were being deliberately opportunistic to try and press on that one particular nuance of the title in order to just extract a better deal for their client. But in the end, the 200 grand that they tried to chip on the price, because they end up having to walk away from the transaction, it probably ended up costing them 50 to 75k in
legal fees,
and not to mention the fact that this sort of theoretical refinancing risk that they identified, some lender's lawyer would have been fine with it, and they would have been able to achieve what they wanted to achieve. This is a block producing hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. That that theoretical risk, that the amount that they chipped, by now they'd have made that money back.
Yeah,
there's so often there's a lack of, I think people are, like we said, just they miss the opportunity, and also it's just the opportunity cost that in terms of time that's costing them as well.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. So that's why I said first comment is that every lawyer should run a business, because they don't actually. You need to think about the risk and go, actually, is this actually a real risk, or is it? I mean, I had one recently where we acted for a borrower, and the lender's lawyer was like, and there's a big high street retailer in the unit, and they're like, well, we need the fire risk. I'm like, well, I can't give it to you. It's the retailer's responsibility. And I had to spell out the law for them to actually understand why it wasn't our responsibility as a landlord.
Well, the lawyer on the other side of this transaction.
Yeah, and I actually literally copied them. I was sitting by a pool because I was on holiday that week, and I was just responding. And I went to legislation. And I copied and pasted a bit, and then she came back and went, okay, fine. After about three rounds of emails, I was like, it's not. But
yeah, but I mean, I'm not a lawyer, and I know that, right? So it's not a hard thing. It's not a hard thing to know.
In fairness, I think she was a junior lawyer, and maybe someone supervisor wasn't looking at the emails. But it's just common sense as well, right? I said to her, I said the retailer's going to go in and fit it out. Was my client meant to do a fire risk every day? Because how things are going to move. The fire risk is the tenant's responsibility.
Yeah.
Or she hadn't read the release properly. One or the other. I'm not sure which one, but yeah.
Yeah. How do you how would you advise colleagues, junior colleagues in a situation like that, to kind of when you're right. When you're right in a kind of in an argument like that with the lawyer on the other side, how would you go about telling her that you're right in a way that enables her to save face?
Nicely, because you're never going to be 100% right. You may interpret something later on, and then if they're on the other side, you don't really want them throwing it back in your face. I always pick up the phone to the other side and just say, right, look, if you read this, understand this is why, and then most time they get it, not always, but yeah. I'd always start off nicely, because there's no point being an arse, because this is a small market. Everyone's gonna you're gonna come across these people again and again eventually. Yeah. So it's always better to be nice, and yeah.
We have we've had a couple of instances where we've had the law firms acting for us, essentially having we're on all parties calls.
Yeah.
I was present for one. The other one I've heard about in passing, but. We closed the transaction eventually in November last year. Quite a large transaction with a kind of repeat client. The two sets of lawyers. So we had an all parties call. Both sets of lawyers were literally just going hammer and tong at each other. And one of the lawyers is someone I've known them for. They've been working for us pretty much since we started. Got amazing relationship with them. Hold them in really high regard. But it's almost like they went back into child mode, and they're just going. The two lawyers were going hammer and tong with each other, and then the client. I mean, how embarrassing is this when the client is having to act as a mediator between his own solicitor and the lender solicitor? It's genuinely embarrassing.
Yeah, I've never done that, but you do get the other side lawyers do wind you up sometimes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's just sometimes the way some of them are very aggressive, and they want to be very aggressive. It happens. You can't, there's people's personalities, but you can't change that.
Yeah.
You just got to learn not to rise to. I mean, I'm sure I've sent off a snotty email or something. I'm not, beyond that if someone's really pissed me off. I mean, I think one of my lawyers was rude to one of my clients, and I told him to get back in box. At which point he said, "I'm going to come and beat you up." I was like, "Come over."
Really?
How's that? Because I was like, "This is my office address. If you want to come." But he was being particularly rude to an underwriter. And I was like, don't be rude to the underwriter. You can say what you want, I'm not going to say it, but don't be rude to them.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
It's unnecessary. Yeah.
Yeah, I think people forget. Well, first of all, you might be ill-advised to go and go toe-to-toe with Deepak, because he's, how tall are you, 6'7"?
6'7", yeah.
Yeah, so you might need a ladder. But otherwise, at the end of the day, we're all here to do business and make money. And I think that, like I saw last week, and ultimately we had the borrower solicitor with our solicitor, and I have to say neither solicitor covered themselves in glory. And it when when one of the solicitors says, "If you just let me finish," you probably know it's time to end the call. So yeah, it's definitely a bit of an embarrassing one. But you say you need to, you make a good point, which is all lawyers need to be in business. I guess your experience of businesses outside of law, I guess was that from a family business, or was that also your wife's business as well?
So we grew up a family business. My uncles, my granddad had shops, my dad markets. So I grew up from the age of 7 or 8 going working there.
Yeah.
So weekends. So I used to go, Saturday was Deptford Market, Sunday Pecco Lane. My granddad used to have a big wholesale there. So we used to spend our weekends there. So we learned to sell, we learned to talk, negotiate, which is quite good fun.
Yeah.
And then since then, I used to when I was a student, I used to sell stuff on eBay, Amazon. We used to do quite well out of that.
Yeah.
I think one of my cousins actually, he got very, very big doing that. He used to sell, I think he sold at TK Maxx, someone like that.
Wow.
His eBay page, but they were wholesalers, so they were easy for them to get stuff.
Of course, yeah.
And then my other half, Meg's got a restaurant business, which is going okay. It's going quite well. She seems to be doing this year or last year. I guess it's not this year now. Seems to her book's come out. She's pushed it. She's done a few private dinners, celebrity dinners, supper clubs, and I think this year hopefully she'll be even higher than that. So
and you've been helping her with that a lot, haven't you? So
yeah, it's been a tough time, but it's been good. It's been a learning curve.
Yeah,
you've learned a lot, how to deal with landlords, customers, all sorts of stuff. So yeah, even suppliers.
How would you say the differences? What are some of the biggest differences between the real estate finance industry and something that's a much more consumer led industry like?
Don't deal with lawyers. No, it's dealing with a customer and understanding how to deal with customers, how to make sure they're happy. You're never going to please everyone. As same as a lawyer, right? I've got clients who I've had for years, and I'll be happy because they know the way I work. And I've got some clients who've come to me that just don't like the way you work, so they won't ever want to use you again because they prefer working with other people. But that's just the same with customers. If you go work with customers, or you're saying to people, you need to try and make them happy, but you're never going to please everyone.
No,
it's a hard market. It's a service industry, and lawyers are in the service industry, and so it was in the restaurant trade. It is a hard market to be in.
Yeah, well, I suppose also trying to be a personality in the food world. I guess it's so hyper competitive. I guess because anyone with a phone and a tripod now is can be a food influencer, right? So
and the amount of food influencers goes, can you pay us to come and we want you to pay us? It's £500 or £1,000 we charge on it. Not really sure that's worth it.
Is it quite a murky world, do you think, in certain circumstances?
I don't know. I never dealt with the influencers direct.
Yeah.
Meg used to do all that. If I was there, I'd say hello, and that was it. I'd leave her to that bit of it. So.
Yeah. Well, you have to pay Eating with Todd some money to come and try your food. That's how it works now?
Some of them, not all of them, but some of them definitely, do try it. But I've seen it in the news where some of the influencers tried to charge, and some of the other restaurateurs, I think one, I saw a 5-star chef, someone Michelin star, he said to the influencer, you're not that important, and he got fired for it apparently.
Really?
So I thought it was a bit harsh. So
yeah. It's because someone, some of my, when we were talking about it in the office last week, and someone was saying one of my favourite sort of food influencers that I enjoy their content, and they're like, oh no, that they're fake now. They now get paid by the restaurants to give good reviews.
Yeah,
it's kind of sad though. It was a bit sad though.
I think the people that win the most are people that don't do it for the money and actually just try and do it because they enjoy it, and then you get the marketing, your advertising, and you make money out of it that way rather than just trying to sell your services. Yeah, you can probably tell when it's paid for, and then you go there to the restaurant, you try, and this is really not nice.
No. I guess you probably get to go out and try a lot of nice food. Yeah. Well, presumably, because Mahak's trying to get new influences or try new things, or
try new things. Yeah. We like going to new restaurants, trying different things. So we went to one on the weekend, a new Thai restaurant in Oxford Street, which is really nice. A bit spicy for me, but it was really nice. Well, khao soi. But they've come from Bangkok. Bangkok. Which part? I can't remember which part, but it's from Thailand. Basically, the concept, they've got a brand over there and they've brought it into the UK now.
Oh wow, that's cool. So, what's the aside from Mahak's food, what's been the most exciting restaurant or place you've been to in the last year or two?
Last year.
What's the most memorable, maybe?
Toba's very good. It's an Indonesian restaurant in St James.
Nice. Okay.
That's really nice. I'm trying to think of any. I can't really think of. I can't think of anyone that's been that memorable. Toba's probably one of the better ones. Yeah.
Good rendang there, or what will they specialise in?
To be honest, I'm not the guy to ask about food. Trust me, I can barely cook. Trust me.
well, you'd have no need. I can imagine exactly. You have very little need to cook.
I don't, but when my other half takes the piss, I can't cook. I'm like, yes, fine, you cook, you carry on. I'm all right. I'm not sure she'll take the piss out of me because I take like 5 dishes to cook one thing.
You have your respective skill set, I suppose.
Exactly.
You do the law things, she can do the cooking things.
Exactly, and I'm very happy for her to make the food and me just eat it. Trust me. So yeah, she'll be like, we've eaten this before. I'm like, we have, but I just can't remember the name of what it was. So yeah, you tell me, I believe you. So yeah,
that's nice. Going back to sort of the legal side of things, the legal profession, something I and many others in the specialist finance industry have noticed is maybe since COVID, and I'd be curious to get your take on it as a lawyer. Obviously, we're still working together, so it's not something you're as afflicted with. But there's definitely something we've noticed is that fees seem to have gone up, but service seems to have gone down. In terms of the specialist lawyers that look after the specialist finance market. What do you think's behind that? What's driving that?
I think so. A couple of things. I think during COVID, everyone was flat out because there was nothing else to do, so everyone was working. So I can imagine some of the lawyers probably got burnt out and probably decided they want to take a step back or retired. And then because you weren't in the office, probably a number of the juniors weren't being trained properly, and they are now qualified lawyers, but they're not as qualified as they would have been if they'd been in the office and they'd been learning for the last couple of years properly. Yeah. So I think it's a combination of things. And people move. I think firms are seeing, like Gunnar Cook are probably seeing quite a few people join. Yeah. And they've left some of the other firms where you probably employ some of the lawyers. Yeah. So I think and they're probably trying to find other lawyers to replace it, but it's probably, and at the same time, they don't want to lose their existing client base by saying to them, we can't service the work. So probably they're saying, yeah, we can do everything, and just trying to find a way to fit it all together, but not necessarily doing it properly. Yeah. I think it's a mixture of those things.
Yeah, it seems to me, and what you're saying kind of is resonating as well, that they're accepting the instructions, but we work with a lot of the borrowers we work with, they are. They're working with the Mr. Khan or the Mrs. Smith above the chicken cottage, basically glorified conveyancer, not particularly sophisticated. A lot of our panel firms, they know the profile of our clients, and they know the profile of the client solicitor. I mean, ironically, obviously, we're working on a deal where you're not acting for us, you're acting for the borrower. So, we're expecting that to be a very smooth transaction, especially, and the broker no one more than the broker, who seems to be determined to become your best friend. He may yet be successful.
Right, we've got a WhatsApp group already.
He did actually mention to me that was one of his tactics for getting lawyers to perform was to put them in a WhatsApp group and harass them. So we're definitely seeing that a lot of our panel firms accept the instruction, and then, despite the fact that they know the level of sophistication of our borrower solicitors, are absolutely deluging them with sometimes completely unnecessary inquiries. Yep. Is that a tactic to kind of slow the transaction down so that they can handle their caseload?
I don't know. So I don't think so, because you have your initial set of inquiries that you send out because it covers everything. Yeah. And then from there you're supposed to work out what is relevant and what isn't relevant. So if you talk about the initial set of inquiry, I think everyone has those, but every law firm has its own set. Yeah. So maybe it's useful. I know some of the lenders, they have their own standardized set, and they say to all the lawyers, use this one. Whereas probably a lot of the lenders don't do that. Yeah. So that would probably be helpful, but I don't think so. I mean, I've never seen it. I mean, I'll tell you on this one if I find some inquiries that I think we shouldn't be asking stuff like this, but most of them should just be pertinent to the transaction question at the time. So but I think also, as you said, you're dealing with some of the conveyancers. They don't always understand what they've been asked to do. No. And that's also probably why it's causing kickback and friction. And they're like, well, hold on, this doesn't make sense to us. And there's a reason for it, but they just don't do enough of it to understand it.
Well, yeah, a lot of the time these conveyancers, you send them a CPSE form. Now, most of the responses to that CPSC form are no or not applicable, right?
Yeah.
But they see a 32-page document and they shit their pants and they go, right, and they're getting paid 1,100 quid for the transaction, and they just go, that's going to the bottom of the pile, and they'll just focus on the resi cases.
It's interesting to say that, because I did, someone first borrowed to me, we did a refinance and I was talking to him, what'd you do? He goes, oh, I own a bunch of retail shops doing phone repairs. I was like, okay, cool. I was like, do you do commercial? Well, yes, my bread and butter is what I was brought up on, so easy. And he goes, what'd you charge? So I gave him my price. He goes, you're like 4 times more expensive than the other guy. Oh, and I guarantee you I'd probably read the lease compared to the other guy. If he's charging you that much, or that little, sorry, he's not reading the lease properly. No one's spending a good few hours reading a 50, 60-page lease and just saying, yes, okay, for that price. I'm like, fair enough. And then he's like, well, yeah, they did make a mistake on this. They did make a mistake on that. I'm like, yeah, so you pay for what you get, essentially. It's service. If you want good service, you're going to end up paying more for it, but you should get a better service and a better quality at work.
Yeah, I suppose, you're always going to talk your own services up, I'm sure, but one of the examples that have been presented to me around working with on the borrower side, working with a solicitor that's not appropriately qualified, not a commercial property solicitor, rather than and more of a residential conveyancer, is that if you're dealing with a bridge or a development transaction or semi-commercial transaction, your lawyer might be cheap and might not be charging you a lot of money, but ultimately the lender's solicitor, it's not really fixed fee quote.
No.
And if the lender solicitor is having to spoon feed the borrower's lawyer, what you think you're saving in legal fees with your own lawyer, you end up paying for however many times over at the lender side. Yeah,
no, I agree with you 100%. Because then we're going to go back to clients a lot. We've had to spend extra time on this because we've had to handhold and show the borrower's lawyer how to do X, Y, and Z, or raise inquiries, and we've revealed certain issues which we know got indemnity for, we've dealt with in different ways, which some of the borrower's lawyers haven't done. So yeah.
So in terms of streamlining cases, a broker said to me, I want to say, I'm trying to pick exactly when he said it to me, but I think it's probably about a year ago. He said to me, with certain lenders, it's quicker to do a term loan with them than it is to do a bridge loan with them.
Okay.
And a lot of the time it's just related to the ability, the speed of which they can do the transaction, particularly. And one of the big things that slows it down can be the conveyance.
Yeah.
I suppose on both sides of the transaction, but let's just say from the lender side of a transaction, what are the things that lenders could and should be doing, or lender solicitors could and should be doing, to make transactions move faster?
I think that's very difficult to answer, because every lender will have their own requirements to what they actually want and what they actually need. Because it depends how you're funded, right? You've got different funding lines. They say, right, well, you want X, Y, and Z. So it's not always the easiest thing to go out there. Here's one thing we need. I mean, I always say borrowers' lawyers have searches, because most lenders want up-to-date searches. If you're saying it's a year or plus old, it's most likely most lenders won't accept it. The standard is 6 months, but you might get some lenders go. And that's the biggest thing you probably need. And then just have a full pack ready. So you can go, and with the inquiries, because a lot of time when we're raising an inquiry, I always ask, can I have your inquiries that you raise? Because there's no point me duplicating the same inquiries for you then to go copy and paste. If you just send me the inquiries originally, I can see what you raise, tick off for what I'm looking at, and go, right, I'm happy with this. No, we need further information on this. And then it's not duplicating or doubling the amount of work, and it makes it quicker. Yeah. But a lot of them don't do that. They'll send you the office copies and the contract. I'm like, okay, but where's the rest of the stuff? Can you send me? That's why we've sent you a 10-page inquiries or wherever it is, just so you can send me what I need. But yeah, I think it works both ways. It's very hard to say as a lender's lawyer, what can you streamline? I mean, some lenders are using title insurance now, which makes life easier because you don't really ask for much, and you can turn those around in a few days because all you need is environmental insurance, and the rest of it is covered by title insurance. Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure I'm convinced about that yet, but
I guess it's something that we're still, I think, very much on the fence over for a business like ours. I guess you know our business quite well. I guess you would say that in a lot of cases, title insurance is probably not Just doing it by title insurance.
Not for
probably
dev stuff, no, not even for new builds. Maybe for stuff that's been there for existing terraced houses, been there for 100 years, and fine, you could probably. But I don't know. But the insurers, I guess, they have a wider view and say, right, we're insuring so much. Realistically, the stuff, the amount that's going to go wrong.
I mean, out of interest, because we have a debate about using indemnity policies.
Yep.
Internally, I'm probably a bit more pro using the policies. Zaher's coming around to it, but he's still, you know him well, he's still quite reluctant. And I guess we've also got other stakeholders in the business who have differing opinions. You've been a lawyer now, how many years? 15 years?
13 years.
13 years, right? So in that time, how many times have you seen an indemnity policy claimed against?
Never.
No. That's probably quite a common reaction as well. Across your peer group. Probably people who've been in the industry for 30 years have probably seen the same, right?
I would suspect so. I mean, if you're 30 years, maybe one or two.
Yeah.
I mean, we were talking to an insurer late last year or something, and they didn't want to insure it because they've had a claim on an access policy on somewhere else, on another one. So we're a bit more risk adverse because of it. But so time I've ever really heard of it. Unless it's fraud. I mean, you get fraud, but that's different. So
yeah. Well, obviously we were both part of the same transaction, weren't we? Fortunately, again, the Westcore, I have to give them a plug for that. They paid out. They were good as gold on that one. Also helped by the fact that yours and our files were spotless as well. So I think that helped. But how do you? I mean. How in your opinion can you mitigate for fraud in transactions?
If you're acting for a borrower, meet the borrower, get to see who they are, actually check their ID properly. I mean, there's no hard stop rule you're going to guarantee. I mean, I'm sure people that do the online checks, there will be ways to spoof that and have fraud. But I mean, I always try and meet my borrowers if I can do.
Yeah.
Because at least if I know them, and they have to come from a reputable source.
Yeah.
Because if they come from someone I've never heard of, I think
I'm
always a bit. You get those emails sometimes. Hi, we've been recommended you to do the purchase of this. Could you give us a quote? And I see those they're scam emails. Just don't want to touch them.
Yeah.
Because most people will call you. They won't just send you an email. They'll give you a phone call and go, right, I've been referred by this person. They've said this and this. Can you, help us out?
Yeah. This episode was sponsored by Avamore Capital. In property finance, you want specialists who understand development, refurbishment, part-completed projects, and bridging deals inside out. Avamore Capital knows construction timelines, cost pressures, and what it takes to structure deals through market changes. Deep expertise, not surface knowledge. Solutions-led thinking based on what actually happens on site. When you're working with Avamore, you're working with people who get it. Learn more at avamorecapital.com. The fraud that you and I were on the receiving end of, or say our borrower was on the receiving end of, the seller's solicitor, were they? Do you think they were implicated in that particular transaction?
I'm trying to remember which. No, you know why? Because from memory, the purported sellers came back to the office to sign some docs.
Okay.
And I was thinking, and I thought, why would they call them back if they were implicated?
Yeah.
But then I also thought, why didn't they call the police when they came in saying we've had reports of fraud?
Yeah.
So it was a bit. I was in two minds about it. I'm still not entirely sure.
Yeah.
But because it was. But that law firm was shut down, I got told.
Yeah. Well, that's why I guess that's why I asked the question. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it depends on who it is at the law firm. Just because someone there may be dodgy doesn't mean everyone there is dodgy.
Yeah.
But it was just very strange that the sellers came back in to sign stuff after they received the money.
And they didn't call the police. They didn't call the police. Yeah. Because had you notified them of the issue at that point?
I think we had. Yeah, I think we had done, and I think the response was, "Oh, the person that you're speaking to we think she's got dementia or something like that." I can't remember. I can't remember. It was a few years ago now, so
it was. Yeah.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah. But I've had it on another case where we had an email from someone, and actually he just got pissed off. It was like 4 sellers, and one of them he wasn't that well, and he got pissed off. He sent an email, but he actually had signed the stuff. He was just being difficult for the sake of it, apparently. So yeah, that threw me.
Were those some of the most exotic things you've seen as a lawyer?
Yeah. The full things are the biggest things, really.
Yeah. I think before I started lending, I maybe it's because of the kind of slightly more. I was operating maybe in a slightly more professional end of the commercial property space, but the idea that, it never really entered my head that the idea that the person who claimed to be the seller could actually not be the seller. And ever since then, I've just been unbelievably paranoid about seller fraud. And I guess in our instance, the situation we were involved in, it was because of it was a probate, wasn't it?
Yes,
and someone had forged the probate register.
I always make sure we download a copy just in case. Now ourselves will get the borrower's lawyer to download it, just because rather than not have that same problem again.
Fortunately we avoided that one, but we're avoiding repeats of that one now. In terms of the market, I know you work with lenders, you work with entrepreneurs. What are the themes that you've seen emerge over the last 18 months? Both for the client as for clients as specialist lenders, and also or acting for clients as specialist lenders and acting for specialist lenders. It's
a tough market, regardless which hat you go on, whether you're borrower or lender, because lenders want to lend, they want to get the money out the door, but it's making sure they get repaid. And borrowers are struggling to sell stuff at the moment, especially at the values they thought they could once achieve. And it's finding, all right, how do I plug that equity gap? How do I refinance and get the lender out so I don't get sued and repossess? And as a lender, you don't want to repossess.
No,
most of the lenders I know don't actually want to repossess. They'll do everything they can to help the borrower, but solely when they really have to. And it's a difficult market, and I don't know when it's going to get better. That's the problem. I mean, it's not being made easier by any means. I mean, I know interest rates went down slightly in December, but are they going to go down that much more? I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert, but I don't think they'll go down massively. I read today jobs have fallen as well. The number of jobs available has fallen, so economy's not doing even that well. No. So
I mean, look, we try not to get too political because Google will bash us if we raise things that are too political. I think that in terms of the broader economy, certainly there's been a big shedding of hospitality jobs. I think that the business rates revaluation is probably going to cause a lot of pressure. I mean, I guess you're in hospitality. You have one foot in the hospitality camp through Mahak, so that's that certainly you'll be seeing that.
But not only that, it feels like a tough market. If you go out there and talk to people and you see what people are trying to do, even building costs. I mean, that's it's nothing political. It's just the way it is.
I agree with that. Although the construction sector is on its knees.
Yes. I know contractors are buying. I mean, a couple of contractors I spoke to, they're buying jobs just for the sake of it. They're not making any money out of it, but they keep their team employed.
They've got to keep. But I guess that's kind of that side of things is not an uncommon factor in in the downturn. And you'd see contractors buying development sites in 2009, 2010. Again, just to keep the gangs going, which I'd expect would have expected to see more of this time around. So it's actually almost encouraging to hear that's happening. But maybe it's a sign we're now really hitting bottom.
I don't know. I think 2009-10. I don't know what the market was like then. I mean, I was around, but I wasn't really paying that much attention to it. But maybe it was easy to sell stuff on because people are still buying, but you don't have as many people buying at the moment, which is the hard part.
I guess a big feature. I mean, Richard, who's my partner in our I said mine and Zaher's partner in our Chartfield strategic land business. He comes from a volume house building background. He was before us a job one time before us. He was at Carla Homes, and he said, look, it all starts with the volume house builders on the land side. They just don't have the sales, and if they don't have the sales, if they've got the inventory, they're not going to start building on new plots, and if they don't have appetite to start building on new plots, what's the point in buying? And what's the point in buying? So, but he is of the view that in the the conversation actually we had last week, he said that you only need one. You only need one to sort of say, right, let's go, and then the land directors at all the volume house builders and the regional house builders, they're all like sheep. As soon as one goes, they all go, because they don't want to be they don't want to get left out. So
Sure.
So I think there's an element of that. But I know you've been involved, involved in one way, shape or form in in buying blocks of or either whole blocks or sort of mostly unbroken blocks. It feels like a bit of a generational buying opportunity, doesn't it?
I agree. I mean, this is the time. If you want to get into the property game in a big way, it's time to do it.
Yeah.
Single houses don't make sense because the stamp duty on that is too expensive. You're better off buying 6 or more in a block, and then at least you're getting the 5% rate. But it definitely is a long term. It's a good time to buy now for the long term. I think so. I mean, as I said, we're picking up bits, we're finding stuff, getting some good discounts on some stuff, not a lot.
No.
And interesting about house builders, because I've had some stuff where I've just come across my desk and it's like, all right, so somewhere up in the Midlands, one of the big house builders was selling literally the 30 houses they built. They were selling them out at a discount. I gave them an offer of a certain price, not like too big a discount. But I don't think. Then I spoke to the agent because they still haven't sold it. So and not even the single plots, even at a 15% discount, they weren't selling them.
Interesting.
So it was.
So they may come back to you.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, it's not that fussed about it, but it's interesting because I think even the big house builders are struggling to sell stuff, because I've seen a few similar stuff where they've sold a few of them, they just want to get rid of the rest now because the liability service charge or whatever it is, it's costing them an arm and leg to hold it, even though they've appointed managing agents, whatever. They still have to contribute towards the service charge, so it makes more sense for them to sell it at a discount, so they're not, at least they've recouped all their money. Hopefully, may not made any profit, but on to the next one.
Yeah, I guess that's it, isn't it? I think in a lot of cases, developers need to not hold out. Shouldn't try to hold out for the maximum amount of money. It's like, if you can take some cash out of it, move on to the next. Start have another go. Because I guess would you agree that there is more realism on, for vendors of development sites, there is a bit more realism now, or there's a bit more acceptance of reality, the new reality?
Somewhat, yes, but again, people aren't buying, so I think people are just holding out. If you're not going to have loads of developers bidding for it, you're not going to get one, and you can afford to hold on to it, then why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Well, I guess, and I can speak to that. I mean, it's ironic that just before you arrived, I was on the phone with one of my commercial tenants, and we got a building in Staines. We put in a lot of time and money and effort to get planning for 19 units there.
Okay.
But we had Colliers who sold us the building. They did, their resi team did an appraisal for us. And I'd be looking at 750k, £1 million capital loss on the price, if we're to sell it now as it is. But
you don't need to sell it now. If you can afford to hold it, why wouldn't you?
So I had the commercial tenant on the phone, and I said, well, look, at the moment it doesn't make sense for me to redevelop it. So if you want to stay for another year, 18 months, you tell me how long you want to stay for. That's kind of where that was kind of how the conversation went. He said, well, I said, and for him, he's got a large portfolio of assets, because the nature of their business is, it's not just offices. They've got, they're a fuel company, and so he's got a huge portfolio of assets, real estate assets, up and down the country he needs to deal with. And we are very low on his list of problems or priorities, if you know what I mean. So, I said to him, look, in the delapse is going to cost you. It's going to cost you upwards of $100,000. If you'd rather not have to spend that money, and more importantly, not have to spend the time moving people out of that building. Exactly. So he's got to relocate. It's occupied. I drive past the building quite frequently. It's occupied. I see people in there all hours of the day. I was like, well, he's got to move those people to another office. Yeah. So, so it's like, well, make his life easier, and he can focus his time and energy for another 12 months on another building, another handful of buildings.
It makes sense though, because if you'd rather have the existing tenant, they know the building, they can look after the building, or hopefully anyway.
No, they're a good tenant. Yeah, touch wood. Yeah,
or commercial tenants are always FRI leases most of the time. So
most of the time. Yeah.
So you're lucky in that respect. Makes life easier. But then why they want the cost of moving all tenants, moving all the infrastructure, paper, internet, computers? If they could stay there, even if you give them slightly discount on the rent, at least you're not having to find a new tenant, pay an agent to find them. Yeah. Works out overall. So yeah.
Yeah, they did some repair works after we renewed or extended the lease last year, and then they said we didn't give them a rent-free period, and then they said, oh, could we have something against this quarter's rent after the lease is signed? And I was like, although contractually we don't have to do it, as a gesture of goodwill, we just did it anyway. Yeah. So it's like these, you develop a good relationship with the people there, and it does go a long way, to be fair.
And hopefully stays for another couple of years and makes life easier.
And then the market, then the market change. Hopefully the market changes, and it becomes a bit, it becomes easy. It makes more sense to either do the development myself, or it becomes easier to sell it for a price that I do want to sell it for.
Yeah.
So I think it makes a lot of sense. But what are the other themes for 2026 that you're seeing, or people are talking to you about? Because I guess we've now been back for a couple of weeks in January.
HMOs is a big one, I think.
Still HMOs, yeah.
I think people are still buying those. Necessarily HMOs, but like care homes, assisted living. I'm seeing quite a few people look at those, looking at the sites, say, right, we're looking at this. Start to do title DD just before they've even got any further, see whether it's worth it. From a legal point, are they happy, and then they can go away, see if they can get planning on it, or they can get contract with a council or someone else. I'm seeing a lot of that at the moment. And then blocks, I've got a few people looking to buy broken or unbroken or very small broken blocks.
Yeah.
I think, as you said, there's an opportunity there for people, and people are capitalising on that at the moment.
It's quite interesting, actually, that normally December would be quite dead in terms of new inbound, or December and early January would be quite dead in terms of new inbound inquiries. But the actually our sales team, since the budget at the end of November, have been deluged with inquiries, and now we're back into the meat of January, recording this in middle of January 2026. But now we're back. People are now wanting to. They've got the quote, and now they're like, right, okay, I now want to push the button and go ahead with this.
Yeah.
So, for all the, and I've been very vocal about the way the budget was handled in terms of the signalling. There was too much briefing. Now people know where they stand. So I think certainly at our end of the market, I know you deal with a broader range of clients, but I feel like what we're seeing, that sort of what I call the sub 2 mil development and refurb space, there seems to be people seem to want to crack on and do stuff, maybe more than they did. I mean, the HMOs is a good point. I mean, HMOs have probably been the most reliable source of business for us, I'd say, over the last 18 months. It is an interesting space, because valuers are very confident about valuing HMOs.
Right. Yeah.
But the one thing that seems to be apparent, and ironically, one of our funders who has a good appetite for HMOs, one of our funders is less keen on HMOs. But the funder who has our main funder who has good appetite for HMOs said, look, one of the risks that we face is that what happens when someone puts an HMO on the market for sale? Is that going to have what impact is that going to have on the entire valuation profession that deals with HMOs, if it is not at a yield that they've been assuming for the last 2 or 3 years?
Yeah.
Because that could have a cascade effect. Look, ultimately, I think we'll be fine. It seems like to be quite a resilient market, and certainly, I mean, look, you can explain probably why HMOs are so popular relative to the traditional buy-to-let model.
I mean, if you can build an HMO in an Article 4 direction, you won't have any other competition.
Yeah.
And it's cheaper than renting out a normal flat. You get the communal areas, you get the communal space. I got one of my clients. He actually makes sure the tenants happen. He actually funds like toilet paper, kitchen roll, whatever, just in the community, because he wants tenants to be happy and they stay longer with him. It's for some people it is an easier business model. They get higher yields from it because they make because you've in a 2-bedroom flat, you've got 2 bedrooms, got a couple living there with a baby or 2 friends. In a 6 or 7, 10-bed HMO, you've got 10 different rooms there. So and you can probably fit that in a 4-bed house or normal 4-bed house. So, you live with your wife and kids, and people are going, actually, well, I extend this. I put a room in the loft, and I've got 10 beds there. So you're squeezing in more people, which is why you're making higher yields out of it. And if you're in an Article 4 direction, well, they won't let you build any more HMOs or convert any more HMOs in those areas. So the value-wise, I mean, I don't know how valuers value them at, but I can't see them dropping massively because there's always a demand for cheap housing.
That's true. And I suppose if you put if the yields got cheap, if the yields got cheap, people will just buy them anyway because they don't have to do the conversion works that they're currently having to do. So,
exactly.
So I guess the conclusion there is that actually there's probably some sound logic, especially in the Article 4 direction, that the HMO valuations could and should be quite robust for some time.
There's quite a big demand for them from people we act for and stuff. They do like buying. They like HMOs. If you're into HMOs, you understand the rules, regulations, and you like buying those, and they're quite simple. And you have a certain amount of turnover, but is it that much different to a normal buy-to-let? Probably not that much.
Probably not.
No,
probably not. Well, I mean, I don't have huge amounts of experience in the HMO space as a landlord. I have some AST experience. There's still you still get plenty of hassle. I mean, put it this way, I actively choose not to have a resi tenants, having had a few resi AST tenants in the not too distant past. Thankfully distant enough that my hairline did manage to recover a little bit afterwards. But in terms of your lender clients, what are your are there any themes or anything your lender clients are saying to you in terms of where their heads are at for the remainder of 26?
I think a lot of people are doing bridging rather than development. I think you're one of the few still do development stuff. Some are doing refurbs. I think I had actually worked for a borrower, but he had terms from a lender, but the lender pulled out. They just didn't like it. Was just a creation of a HMO. They just didn't like it. So I think they don't want to deal with the refurb and stuff. They just wanted to.
We heard about again, not mentioning names, but in the office last week, it was mentioned that two lenders, they're both based in the northwest, stopped doing one Liverpool, one Manchester. They're basically anything with a sort of subsequent drawdown. They seem to have developed an allergy to, and one of those guys was, we were competing with quite a lot with one of our top brokers. We were competing with them quite a lot on the ground up side, and apparently because they want to gear themselves up for sale, they decided that they want to cut out their development, the development side of the business, which I'm delighted about because it's less competition for us. But it struck me as odd. I mean, I understand why it's been difficult for development lenders or those that fund development lenders over the last 3-4 years. I really do, because we ourselves have got assets on our book that have required very intense asset management to get them into a position where we can make an appropriate recovery. But I do think there is a bit of an overreaction. There is a bit of an overreaction by some lenders and some of the people that fund them to have an aversion to development. I'm not going to complain, but probably the market, the wider industry needs a good plurality of lenders that do a variety of things.
Well, what, do you not think it was oversaturated?
On the development side, no. I think
generally, because I think
that I totally agree with. Yeah, people
try to be lenders of all sorts. They want, I've had it across different borrowers. You get a different lender I've never heard of. They're a private funder. They don't require this. They require that. They'll take views on this. I mean, they'll do development lending. I mean, we lent to someone, and it was a regulated loan, and I acted for the borrower. I'd be surprised if they lent you, but the lender was happy to take a view on it.
Okay.
And just they had him sign a piece of paper. I said, I'm not really sure that works. We all know you live.
We'll put that to that test in court.
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, they're never going to change it because they want to refinance and move in or sell it. if they can't refinance high enough. But it's I think there are a lot of lenders out there that don't necessarily know what they're doing, but they think they do.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of bridge lenders who got into development who didn't know what they were doing, and then they bit off more than they could chew, and then they've been spat out again.
Which is why they're no longer doing it, and people are saying, well, actually, those terms we gave you a couple months ago, we don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah, but the people that were brought up in the office last week, they've got a decade's worth of refurb and development experience. So it did strike me as odd, but I do agree. I mean, but at the end of the day, like, bridging markets there's too many bridging lenders. There's too many people in the space.
Yeah.
That how a broker knows how to decide, other than past performance, and then it's just down to price and leverage. Yeah,
and relationship as well. I think if you get on well with a lender, you'll give them more business because you push them and say, right, can we do this? Can we do that?
Which is true, but it also begs the question, like, well, you're chasing you start to end up chasing the far end of the bell curve if you can't offer the best leverage or the best price, right? Generally speaking, if you're a newer entrant to the market, if you're someone who wants to have access to opportunities in the market, you're only going to end up with worse quality deals. And what you perceived, the argument I make in favour of development is what you perceive to be increased risk. Well, you're actually taking on a huge amount of risk on the bridging side if you're at 75 LTV, but the valuation is 10% overvalued, maybe 15% overvalued, which, by the way, a lot of people don't realise. You can't really successfully sue a valuer. You won't get any money from a court at that level, and then you only need to see a 10% shift in the market, which isn't outside the realms of possibility, and then you're starting to stare at a loss.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree with you. I mean, and you're right. You can't sue a valuer for 10, 15 because it's someone's opinion essentially you're relying on, and that's the opinion today. It doesn't mean this opinion is going to be correct in 6 months' time. I mean, I've seen it before. We've had a deal when there was a ransom strip and we were getting them to sort that out, but their valuation expired. They got a new valuation and it downvalued. And that was only in a couple of months. So I presume I think the valuation was 3 months ago, but when we got finished our bids, and then they were like, well, actually, they lent a couple of months ago on the higher value. They'd be struggling, when it comes to repayment. So, but I can't remember if they bought the deal or not in the end, the borrower. Yeah. But it's just valuations are very subjective at the moment.
So which begs the question again. You could be at 65 loan to GDV on a dev, or you could be at 75 on a bridge, and just because you have to put some construction at risk doesn't mean that it's a riskier deal. But anyway,
But in some way, development works because if you're relying on 18 months development, you're hoping the market will be better by then, and actually by the time you get to it, you're able to sell the assets or refinance quite easily. So it makes it somewhat less risky, somewhat. Yeah,
exactly. I guess just looking to wind things down now, Deepak. Bit of a closing tradition. We haven't talked a lot about around your career more generally, but we just dive straight in. But as you mentioned, you've been qualified for 13 years. If you were to pick a time, in your career or young life, maybe when you're on one of the market stalls, like what would be the advice you would give to your younger self, and why?
Oh, that's an interesting one, actually. What would I give to myself? Look for more opportunities when you're younger. Look to try and think about things differently and look at things in a different way. So I approach things differently now than I probably did 10, 15 years ago. You're very rigid because you're brought up when you're a lawyer, you're brought up to look at things in a certain way. Right, this is the way you want to interpret, this is the way you want to do it. But actually think about things in a wider way. Think about how things work realistically, and also look at opportunities for yourself. If you're a younger lawyer, you need to understand the market, go out there, talk to different people, meet different people. So it's all about meeting different people. It's how you learn new things, I find. Nice. Because I've learned a lot of stuff from my clients. They teach me from all the stuff they do, and they tell me what they're doing, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting. You're doing that. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Never thought of it that way.
Yeah. And you've got the curiosity for some of it to stick. Yeah,
exactly. And some of the clients actually become friends now, and they call me and go, right, we've got this, we want to do this, but how do you structure it on the legal way? And I'm like, okay, it's interesting. I never thought of it that way. So yeah, and it's the more people you talk to, the more people you meet, I think it broadens your horizon, makes you a better lawyer and a person overall. So.
Nice. Yeah. Good. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
It's been great to have you on. It's been a fun conversation. If people want to find you on the internet, what's the best way to reach out? You got any social profiles or LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, Deepak Ohri at Merali Beedle. So yeah, on LinkedIn.
Okay, nice. Well, thank you very much for tuning in. Thanks to Matt for helping today on the technical side. Thanks to Versta and his team, our editors at Fox and Fifth, and thanks to the lovely Davina, who's the show's producer. I've been Michael Dean. You can find me on the internet, as I said, at property_funder. This show's been supported by Avamore Capital. You can find them at www.avamorecapital.com, and we'll talk to you again on the next one. Thanks and bye.